start recording on 3, 2, 1.
Excellent. Hi, everybody. Welcome. We have Adrian Foster Fletcher here today, and he is our good friend, Richard Foster Fletcher's dad. And he wrote the book that he's going to hold up for us now. Find him in the grid of pictures. Over 50 ? Get that next job. And you can find this book on Amazon. And I was trying to find it myself here. But I'll get that ready and share it at a key point. We're going to let him talk today. And he's promised us, and I believe him, that this book can be very useful to people under 50 also. And good, your son is here, Adrian. But let me share real quick. I'll share my screen for Adrian's book. And it's right here. If you have Kindle Unlimited, it's free. If you want to buy the Kindle, it's only $5. I'm rounding up, excuse me, and I don't know that in pounds. And then the paperback's only $10. So I will now, oh boy, I've got to stop sharing. If anyone can force my stop sharing, sometimes my my screen controls hide from me, and oh no, I hate it when this happens. Let's see if I can recover them. Oh, now I see where it is. Okay, there we go. So Adrian, please take over. And if you need to screen share, let us know.
Thank you, Tom. I was planning to talk for sort of 10 to 15 minutes. Is that what you had in mind?
Exactly. Like give a 10 to 15 minute presentation. And then I think, knowing our family, we will have plenty of questions for you.
Okay, the first thing to say is the book says over 50, get that next job. Now, looking at the screen, I think it's only myself that actually comes into that category. So before you all turn off and say, well, what's it got to do with me? The answer is that when you're over 50, in my opinion, applying for jobs online is pretty much a waste of time. Now, when you're under 50, I see no problem at all with applying for jobs online. What I'm going to tell you today is to give you some other strategies to supplement and go with the work you're doing with applying online. So that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to cover 4 topics. I'm going to cover how to write a CV. I'm going to cover how to do an interview. I'm going to cover how to network with other people to find job opportunities. And finally, I'm going to cover how to apply direct for roles that aren't advertised, you don't even know exists. Those are the 4 things I'm going to cover today. There's quite a famous film, which some people might have seen, but if you haven't, I'll explain briefly, called The Day of the Jackal. And it's about an organization in the 1960s that wanted to get rid of President de Gaulle. When all their efforts had failed, they paid a lot of money to bring in an outside killer. And this killer had got 1 gun and 2 bullets. And the film is a fascinating duel between him and the police as he gets nearer and nearer and nearer his target. And the point about mentioning this film, The Day of the Jackal, is that too many people operate like a national army. They've got planes and ships and tons of men and tanks, and they go into the marketplace and just keep firing shots. Applying for jobs is a comparison I'm making, and just keep firing, thinking eventually one of my shots will hit something and I'll win. And my approach is to say, there's nothing wrong with that, but it can take up a lot of time and energy and resources. What I'm saying is if you narrow down your search and are much more strategic about how you set about doing what you want to do, then you'll be much more successful. Having said that, this very starting point is you have to be very clear. This is the person I am, and this is what I'm trying to achieve. This is the job I'm trying to get. If you start off with the view that someone will read my CV, they'll look at it in amazement and say, oh, I've been waiting half my life to read a CV like this. This person must come in. And when they come in, I'll tell them, this is the job that I have for you. We all wish that world exists, but sadly it doesn't. And I don't know anybody who's ever been in that fortunate position. So given that we're all mortals, we have to take a different approach. And the first thing to say is that when you set off looking for a job, you have to look for a job as if it was a job in itself. You can't be half-hearted. You can't just ping things off. And that's one of the problems of applying online, sorry. It is so easy to apply for a job that, not surprisingly, when you go on the job website, you see that already hundreds of other people have applied. Now, just to put it in a context, when I was headhunting, if I worked really hard, I could read 50 CVs a day, doing nothing else. So in a week, I could probably get through 250, doing nothing else. And every person you're sending your CV to has probably got their normal job as well. So you can see now why people use algorithms to distill down so they can read through 20, 30, 40, 50 CVs. And how they do that, you've got more idea than I have because you're in the AI world, but most people have no idea how they sift it down. So if you're very clear, very planned, very prepared, and all the time think to yourself, how do I make myself stand out? What can I do in this application to make myself stand out? You start, of course, by preparing a CV. And I probably sent 1,000 people out for interview, and I think I changed every single CV that I sent out. So the fact that I got a very high rate of people being asked in for interview, I think indicated that I must have got the CV right most of the time. So how do you put together a good CV? Well, let's start with basics. No more than 2 pages. In the US, 1 page. In Britain, 2 pages. I can't speak for the rest of the world, but your CV is your glossy brochure. It's telling people about you. And you have to get your message across quickly. So set yourself the 200-word test. Get up on the screen or print it out and count, or get the word count, 200 words. Oof. Have I got my message across, who I am and what I do, in those 200 words? If you haven't, then try again. And there should be lots of white space. If your CV now is 6 pages, do not think that by widening the margins, top and bottom, and using 6 type or 4 type and cram it all in, that it'll improve, because people don't read CVs, they skim them. Remember that. You're highlighting your technical knowledge, your expertise, the courses you've been on, the projects you've worked on, the size of the projects, the markets you've been in, the countries you've worked in, all of those things. And you're doing it in bullet points, 1 or 2 lines, no more than that. No blocks of texts and no big paragraphs telling everyone, I'm wonderful. People will just ignore it. When it comes to the interview, prepare carefully. Think about the sort of questions you're likely to be asked. Most of the time, the same questions come up over and over again. The most common question is, tell me about yourself. And this should be a 1-minute précis of who you are and what you want to do next. Don't forget, with interviews, it's tribal. So try and fit in. Wear the clothes that they would wear. Carry the case that the person seeing you would use. Just try and do some physical things that show that you're one of their tribe. But most of all, try and turn the interview into a business meeting. Easier said than done. So what I'm suggesting is that after they've asked 2 of the questions, you say, oh, excuse me, do you mind if I ask you a question? And they always say, oh, no problem. They're pleased. They haven't got to think of any more questions. Yes, please. But what do you like about working here? What sort of people do you employ? You've been here a while, Tom. I can see you've hired a few people. What do you look for when you're hiring people? And he's telling you exactly what they're looking for in the person to hire, and therefore you play it back. And you've turned it interview, business meeting. And you wrap up by saying, and tell me, what's the process from here? 70% of all jobs come through networking. And so don't forget that. So think about your own network. With LinkedIn, it's very easy. Just pull together 100, 200 people that you know, but do not ring them up and ask for a job. There's nothing more embarrassing than being put on the spot by someone ringing you up and say, any jobs going at your place? No, don't do that. Instead, ask them for advice. I see you used to work at so-and-so. Who's the person who's in charge of that division now? So try and look them up on LinkedIn and think about common things you have. Or say, you know, we worked together 5 years ago. You probably know where I've moved on. I'm looking for a role in the company like so-and-so. Do you know anyone in these companies? So you're trying to get information. And then on the back of that, if they do, you're looking for introduction. Oh, when I phone Tom, do you mind if I use your name, Valerie? No problem at all. So that's how you then do that. And if they're internal, say, Valerie, you know, I really do want to get a job with Vodafone. Could you go in and see Susan and give her my CV and say, I worked with Adrian. He's a first-class chap. I recommend you see him. So those are the things to do. You're trying to basically get recommended internally. The last way to get a new position is to apply direct. Applying direct is fantastic if your CV isn't a really good fit, because when you apply direct, you can just write a letter to the departmental head, to the director of that division. And when people get these letters, they're amazed. They go, my God, Ash has just written to me a nice personal letter saying, you know, I can help your company. I can do this and this and this. Now, applying direct, you have to put a lot more research into it, to the company, into the person you're seeing, and for the role you're looking for. And what you're saying in that covering letter is, without a CV, by the way, why give them reasons not to see you? You say, I'm going to be passing your business next week. Can I stop by and see you for half an hour, late in the afternoon, 5 o'clock, 5:30, 6 o'clock, just 15 minutes, explore if we've got any common ground. The other thing about applying direct is you can apply for a contract. You can apply for part-time work. And part-time work and contracts become full-time jobs and full-time contracts. So it gives you a huge amount of flexibility to actually do what you, to actually find a new opportunity. And you're special. If there is a role, if there's a job, you're in prime position and you've put yourself out and you've shown them, I want to work for you. So summarizing, think about putting a good CV together. Research for your interview so you know who you're seeing. Consider supplementing applying online by networking with former colleagues that you've worked with. And don't be put off by applying direct and just seeing what happens, because you're taking control. So prepare your plan, work your plan, but above all, stay upbeat, stay positive, stay mentally fit, but most of all, make yourself stand out. Thank you.
All right, Adrian, I know you may not have had the chat open, but everybody was being blown away by what you were saying, especially turning the interview into a business meeting. But I have a question for that I'm asking for the benefit of everyone. And I don't know how to make it sound not rude. So I think, I will not be trying to sound rude. Adrian, why should we listen to you on these points? I know the answer, but I want to hear it from you.
Okay. So I was for 20 years an international headhunter. I sent 1,000 people out for interview and had 300 people get jobs. I probably read 10,000 CVs. For the last 10 years, I've been volunteering in a local executive job club. And what's interesting is when I went there the first day, I saw their sample CV compared to my sample CV, and they were exactly the same. So in terms of writing a CV, in terms of getting people interviews, in terms of getting people jobs, but most of all, in terms of thinking outside the box. And just don't get sucked into every day, I'm going to apply to 10 more jobs. Bing, 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 bing. Because everybody else is doing that.
And guys, I thought I knew his excellent justification. Now that I heard it again, I went, oh my gosh, that was bigger than I originally remembered. So guys, let's please use the hand raise feature, and let's pelt Adrian for all he's worth here. Let's get as much value questioning him to death as we can, because he wants to help. Okay, great. Let's go with Jonathan first.
Hi, Adrian. No, just a really interesting point that you mentioned there about the interview into a business meeting. It's something my old man used to say as well. But what other tips would you have to change that concept of the interview and switch it into more of a business meeting, to say, well, we know you have this problem, I'm the solution to your problem, as opposed to having an interview going through, okay, question, answer routine. How do you make it into a discussion about because the company's hiring because they have a gap, or they have an issue, or they have a problem, or something that they want to solve? How can you turn that into a discussion as opposed to an interview in a Q&A type?
Jonathan, you've raised a very good point, and I think it's one of the most crucial things in my book, and that is trying to break this question answer, and anything you can do to create a discussion immediately sets you apart from everybody else, because nobody else has done that. And then you're exchanging ideas, you're exchanging questions, you're discussing how you want the job doing, you're discussing how the company is performing, you're discussing what happens next. Immediately becomes a two-way street. And when you leave, she thinks, gosh, that Jonathan, he really understands our business, he understands what we do. And the device I would use is to say, let them ask 2 or 3 questions, because they've always got 2 or 3 questions to ask, but they haven't prepared for the interview. In 20 years, only one customer ever prepared for the interview for a candidate. So assume they haven't. They might have done, but it's unlikely. So that's when you say, could I ask you a question? And that's normally enough of an icebreaker.
Excellent. Kimberly, you are next. And if you've asked your question, do raise your hand. That helps me manage things.
First, thank you so much, Adrian, for your feedback and for your insights. It's really, really, really very helpful. I have found that your point about networking is probably the most important, and the idea that you can network simply through like online formats, I think is actually, like, there's 2 sides to it. Like you had mentioned, if you're running through town and somebody wants to see you, I have found, because I've been doing this for a while now, that a lot of people don't have the time anymore to do that. And so one of the things that everyone has always told me is, come to our event, come to the times that we network with each other. So a really important aspect is to, one, as you say, know what you want to do. That's the most important, I think, because I think that a lot of people don't necessarily know what they want, and that's to their detriment, because you really do need to say, I'm perfect for this role because of this, this, and this. And so you need to do your research and understand what those roles entail. And you also need to research the company and understand how they interact with each other. What events do they go to? What is their networking experience? Because every single job interview I've ever had has come from networking and nothing else. ATS stinks. You will not be seen from a machine. I have found that when you network, you build up a sort of team of people that have you on their radar, and they know that you are trying to pursue certain goals. And it's kind of like kids applying to college. If you follow up with the school that you're interested in, if you follow up with the job that you're interested in, and just very respectfully touch base with people and say, hey, this is the latest skill set I've gotten. This is the latest thing I'm doing. And you make sure that you're updating that on your LinkedIn. You make sure that you're updating that on your social media. People begin to realize that you are working that getting a job machine. And as Adrian pointed out, it is a full-time job looking for a job. So if you're juggling many different things, keep that in mind and think, okay, am I ready to dedicate myself to really pursuing this job search? Because you can't really jump into one thing if you haven't got those skills to be able to say, I can do this. I've seen a lot of people say, well, just fake it till you make it. But in certain things you can't. And so you shouldn't try to fake it till you make it in certain things. I think fake it till you make it to get over your fears, to get into the door, to promote yourself. But know what you need to know to go into a job, or at least know what you don't know so that you can talk to that. That's all. Thanks very much, Adrian. Really appreciate it.
No, the point you make, Kim, is an excellent point. And it is about using LinkedIn to connect with other people, to comment, make comments about what they've said. Every comment you make, the person who's they read it, or what they said. So you're up on their radar, and that's a very, very subtle way of just getting underneath. So, oh yeah, Jonathan, I know him. But in terms of making yourself stand out and be different, there was a fantastic story about the young lady who wanted to be hired by Google. And she went out and bought the URL. Google should hire me. So the email came in, jaya@googleshouldhireme.com. So, wow. Now, you can't ignore that. You really can't ignore that.
The best story
trouble.
The best story I heard in this realm was a person wanted to be hired by a leader, wanted to be hired at this certain company. And he looked up data on the leader of that company and found that they didn't have a Wikipedia page. And so the guy did careful research and created one, and then messaged the guy saying, you should have had a Wikipedia page. So I started one for you. Boom. That's made him stand out.
Absolutely, Tom. Yeah, I said we were going to bring that to the family, didn't I? Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. As far as I remember, because I've found the hand order thing in Zoom doesn't work that great. We have Ashish, then Jaya, and then you go. So go ahead, Ashish.
Hi, Adrian. It was really wonderful and awesome session. I learned many things. I wanted to ask you, let's say if I am applying to a data science job, particular change of field, let's say, I'm currently a software developer, I apply to a data science job. What are the first few things that a recruiter looks into my CV? So can you summarize up into like 2 to 3 points?
Changing career is the hardest thing that you can do by a long, long way. And so if I was changing career, I would only apply for jobs direct. Because this way you send a letter, it says, Dear Jaya, I see your company is doing great things in this field. I have a background in this and this and this. I think it would be a really good help to you in doing this and this and this. I'll call you next week and arrange with your PA to stop by one evening at 6 o'clock for 15 minutes. And that way they can't look at your CV and say, what? I don't want to see Ashish. He's not relevant. That's ridiculous. So that is the way, applying direct is the way to swerve all the recruiters. Applying direct, if you want to change career, you might get lucky, but you really are stacking the odds very heavily against yourself.
Got it.
And the other
Real-
thing to say, is let's not forget of the mental impact of keep applying and being rejected, Just hearing nothing. I say you must stay mentally fit, positive, and my method of networking and applying direct means that you take control of the process. You're not waiting for somebody else to reply. I've heard people waiting 6 months for a reply. So that's what I would recommend Ashish apply direct.
A real quick interjection before we go to the next question, Adrian. I think you need a second edition book called Under 50. Get that job. Because these are great points. Okay, Jaya, you are next in line. Thank you.
Yeah, my question is, I know you mentioned Adrian, by the way, thank you so much for presenting at this mentoring session. It's very, very helpful and useful. I really appreciate it. My question is, you mentioned that doing the research about a company is really, really important in order to be prepared to enter the interview, right? When you're having a conversation or a discussion. I know one way of researching is actually like going through the website, is company website, and researching there, or LinkedIn. What are the methods that might be out there that one can research besides the company website or the LinkedIn method? And another second component to that is we're always trying to identify what are the pain points of an organization, right? That's why they're hiring people so that they can fix their problem. How can we identify that pain point or problem that the company is facing so that the interviewer will know what it is and maybe kind of prepare themselves to be better at answering questions and so forth, or providing solutions?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, there's two things. I would just go on a general Google search and just see if there's any press that you haven't picked up from the press releases on their website. That's the first thing. But the press releases are the key things. What new things they're doing, what new markets they're looking for, what new products have they brought out. New, different. Anything new creates an opportunity. Now, I can only speak for where I live here, but here in sunny Newbury in England, we have a local newspaper. And once a month there's a business section. And every month there's a prominent company and business in there that has a profile of them, what they're doing. Now, I guarantee you, if you wrote and said, dear Mr. Ryan, I saw your company's profile in your weekly news, Sean will jump out of his chair and say, look, someone saw my article. They know how great we am. And let's Jaya, come and see me. So if you have the opportunity of a local paper with company profiles in, once again, you apply to it, it sets you apart.
Excellent. Jaya, does that cover everything for you?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Okay, good. And it's okay if, by the way, when y'all ask a question, I encourage you to ask a follow-on question too, just to make sure we've really covered it. Okay, Hugo, you are next, son.
Yeah, thank you, Dad. So let me just lower my hand. So thank you. So I want to believe you can all hear me. Adrian, thank you for the presentation. Thank you. I'm very grateful. So my question is very simple. In Nigeria, where I originally come from, we have at 50, it's expected that you're part of the C-suite, so there are not really a lot of vacancies in the C-suite in Nigeria. And what that means is that at 50, if you are lucky to make a new career move, like look for another job, you will most likely, from my research, about 95% of the time end up with a job qualified for. So you'd see yourself receiving a lesser pay, or probably in a job that you really will.
Oh, bummer. Okay, we gotta
this place.
Oh, Good.
Right.
Hugo,
you
we
hear
may
me?
need you to repeat the last 10 seconds because you froze for a bit. Uh-oh.
Oh,
Okay.
seriously? Can you
Yeah.
hear me now? Is it better?
Yes, you're freezing intermittently. So just Richard, Adrian, did you get the gist of his question?
I think Hugo was saying that when you hit 50, you're basically in the job. You're in the job that you're meant to have, and you're stuck with it, and they know that and pay you less money. Is that right?
I think we lost him, but when he comes back on, we can try to recover it. Let's see. Oh, there you are. Hugo. Okay. Adrian, repeat that again for Hugo.
I think Hugo was saying that in Nigeria, when you get to 50, you are in the job that you're best suited to, and that's the job you'll have for the rest of your life, and that's what you're stuck with, and they know that. So therefore, start paying you less money. Is that right, Hugo?
Okay. Okay. So can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can, but did you
Okay.
hear his answer to what we understood your question to be?
No, I didn't quite get his answer. But what I'm going to do is maybe I could just ask the question again, if that is okay.
Yes,
okay,
go
great.
for it.
Okay, great. So sorry for that break. I had to try to reset the right. Okay, so like I was saying, in Nigeria, when you are 50, it is expected that you are the pinnacle of your career. It's expected that you have been there and done that. So when you're trying to make another move at that stage, you are probably looking at a C-suite level job, like an executive level job. And in Nigeria, there are not many vacancies like that. So what happens is that the moment you hit 50 and above and you're trying to take another job, you will most likely end up in a job that you are overqualified for and you will be underpaid for. So in a market like ours, would it be advisable that when you just hit 50, you just go full Tom Ives, like start thinking of legacy forming things, like maybe starting a mentoring session or starting something, on the side that, can now help you create a legacy instead of still trying to now, because obviously when you take a job like that you're overqualified for and you receive a lesser pay for, it's going to affect your motivation, definitely. So what do you think, sir?
I think everyone should have a plan what to do after 50 for themselves. You have to ask yourself the question, how many years do I have to work before financially I'm in a position where I can retire? However, if you've set some money aside and had some thoughts, 45, 47, 50, come 50, you can then start your own business. You can start then being an agent for somebody else. You can start being a consultant. All these things you can do. So you're not beholden to somebody else who decides when you're going to finish work and on what terms and on what salary. And it's the same in England, actually, Hugo, that when you're 50 and a managing director, chief executive, moving somewhere else is not easy. There are not many of those jobs. So it's no easier here than it is where you are.
Right. Thank you.
Excellent. And I'm
And
glad we
just to say before I
recovered.
go, Hugo, in my very first job, I sat across from a desk from a young man called Michael Ohojuru.
Okay.
And he was fantastic.
Sure. Right. Great. Thank you.
And I'm glad we heard your question again because we did mishear it, Hugo. Okay, if I'm not mistaken, Ngazi's been waiting the longest. So please, dear Ngazi, you're next.
Thank you so much for the presentation. That's really, really interesting. The first question I'm going to ask is at over 50, one of the key things I picked from this is make your CV 2 pages at most. And I find that I struggle with that, especially in my field of data technology, where people would want you to talk about the technologies you've used and how and when you've used them and for how long. So give a bit of meat to whatever it is that you've done so that they understand what you've done. So it's a bit, yeah, I have struggled with trying to cut down my CV to 2 pages. So that would be one thing I would want you to talk about when you're in a specialist area. Yeah, I'm sure you've seen a lot of things like this, so I'm sure you have something to say. That is one. And two, if your usual clients are normally large, I'm in England as you are, like NHS or government organizations, you find that a lot of times they don't really go very public with the internal happenings. So it's a bit difficult to find out what they do to apply directly as you sort of suggested. When it's the smaller organizations, yeah, I find it's easier to get information of what they're doing. For the NHS, for instance, you will hear of the initiatives, the broad, maybe NHS England initiative. If you approach a specific trust, I find that they close up a bit and they wouldn't want to talk to you about exactly what it is they're doing. Even when you go for the interviews, they're not, unless when you're applying, they don't always tell you exactly what it is. When you get to the interviews, when you start sort of getting to understand what exactly it is that they're looking for. So yeah, if you can help me just talk about those challenges, that would be great. Thank you.
There are two very good questions. Is it Ngozi or is it Ngozi?
You got the second time. Ngozi.
Okay. So two very, very good questions. And yes, there is, in my book, one exception when your CV can be more than 2 pages. And that is where, as she says, a third sheet, third or fourth, says technical skills and expertise. And you could, in my book, have that as a third sheet, separate to your CV, just outline those things. So when somebody comes and goes, do they know about this? And, oh yeah, there, courses, whatever, it's all there. And actually, if you really feel that 2 pages doesn't do you justice, in my book, you can have a couple of supplementary pages, 3 or 4 supplementary pages. If you go and see a recruitment consultant, they might say, look, could you give us a bit more information? Of course, there it is. Or if you go to an interview, it goes particularly well. As you're leaving, you say, oh, before I go, there's some supplementary information about me there. But don't forget, the more you say, the more they can find excuses not to hire you and not to take it forward. The next point that Ngozi made was about applying to the NHS, and she's absolutely right. If you're dealing with the NHS or government organisations, there's a very, very rigid hiring structure, and I don't know how you get around it. I don't know if you can get around it. They're very, very difficult. But even in big companies, I live here in the home of Vodafone, that was a couple of years back one of the 20 biggest companies in the world. I still maintain, if you can find a contact, if my contact is Greg Coquillo, and you write him a personal email, or you send him a personal letter in the post, personal, private, confidential, Greg Coquillo, Vodafone, it sets you apart. Suddenly, gosh, he's taken the trouble. He must be serious. And that's the problem with applying direct. How serious are you? When I sent someone for interview, I phoned within 24 hours to speak to the person and say, Valerie, you saw Greg yesterday. What did you think of him? And the first question that Valerie, everybody else always asked me was, first of all, what did he think of us? And that question means, I don't want to say to you, Adrian, oh, Greg was fantastic. He was awesome. Wow, when can he join? And I say, well, actually, Valerie, he wasn't very impressed and doesn't want to come back. Too embarrassing. So, quite rightly, what is interesting. Now, when you apply direct, it tells them I am interested in joining your company. Job done. So I'm sorry it doesn't answer your question very well, but I have to say government departments, NHS, is a real toughie, which is very hard to get around.
Ngozi, before we go to the next question, and excuse me, Ngozi, and to everyone,
Ngozi.
if we mispronounce your name, please correct us. I've been saying Ngozi for too long. Ngozi, did we cover your question well?
I mean, I understand the situation very well, and he's spot on. That's what I found. I just wanted to validate. I wasn't, you know what I mean, Adrian, but you've sort of validated what I know to be the case. Private organizations are a little bit more verbose when it comes to talking in the papers or talking about what they do and their contacts, because when it comes to government organizations, there is a code of conduct that they have to abide by. They cannot tell you anything about what they are doing. I work for a government organization right now as a consultant. I cannot talk about the project to anybody right now, and that is what it is. So even if I knew that someone needed a job there, we'll go around it in a very different way. So, but yeah, thanks for validating that. I just wanted to be sure I wasn't not doing the right things. Yeah, thank you.
Excellent. Now, this is really embarrassing. I have a daughter whose name I've been pronouncing or emphasizing wrongly, and y'all probably pronounce it the way I do. And so it's a travesty that this has happened. I'm going to do my best, daughter. Manpreet, you're next. Manpreet?
Was that me? Is it my name you're after?
No, you are my sister, Ngozi. I was even mispronouncing because she was saying, you put too much of an emphasis on the man part. You're saying Manpreet, and it's Manpreet.
that is the Texan in you coming out, man.
Manpreet, your turn, honey.
I had two questions. So the first one is, in your CV, when you do things like at work, documentations, or when you're documenting something that's outside your work profile, but that actually helped the company save around 20 to 30% of the cost. So do you think these type of things should be written in your CV when you're doing things like this? That has actually benefited company.
Oh, yes. I mean, I think if you want to sit and say, how do I write a CV? Just put your CV to one side and get an A4 sheet of paper and just write down your achievements. Just write those down, nothing else. If you pay $10,000 and go to a top outplacement company in London, that's what tells you to do. They say, sit down there at 9 o'clock. There's some A4 sheets of paper. There's a bow. Just write down your achievements and we'll come back and see you at lunchtime. That's your morning's work. So that then is the basis for your CV. You can hang the rest of it about it. All people want to see is achievements. And when you finish a CV, print it out, get your marker pen, a Stabilo Boss pen, and highlight every achievement. And a third to a half of it should be achievements. Otherwise, you've turned up for work. So what?
No, I did not still get it clearly.
Well, I'm saying you're absolutely right, Manpreet. You should highlight your achievements.
Okay.
Every role, highlight your achievements.
And the next thing is like the thing you told about networking on LinkedIn. So how do you keep your existing networks? How do you keep up with the communications with your network? And you get connected today, but today you don't need job, but you might need a job like after 6 months, and you want to maintain that connection. So what would you advise on that to have it with your LinkedIn network and be connected?
Well, all you can do is regularly post and comment on LinkedIn so your name keeps appearing in people's subconscious. I can't see what else you can do. I mean, otherwise you have a full-time job just on social network.
Now, guys, at this point, oh, was that all, Manpreet? Excellent. All right. Now, I might need your help, guys, with your hands raised at this point. I think Sai was next, but y'all be honest with, okay, excellent. Let's go to Sai.
Hey, thanks for the wonderful presentation, Adrian. It was really informative. My question is, I'm a sophomore, still in the college. After 2 years, I want a job. So what is that, like in my college, the regular pattern is for the standout among all the students is a pointers. Like you get good grades, you get excellent grades, then you will be a standout person for the job. I personally feel it's a myth, but that is what is going around my surroundings. So I really want you to I want to ask you, like, is it really necessary, or there anything standouts to getting a job for the first time, for the first job, especially in the core sector?
Okay, so what you should be doing is looking for part-time internships in the holidays, particularly the summer holidays. I think you're shaking your head. Is that not possible? So you're shaking your head. You're shaking your head. You're doing this.
Yes, that was an Indian reaction, I think. It's an Indian yes. It's
okay.
It's
so yeah. So you're looking at local companies, place where you can go and get expertise, and you're looking for internships. And that's the way to do it. We had a remarkable man in our job club who was 52, applying for a job for the very first time in his life. When he was 16 at school, he wrote to a local company and said, "I want to be a software programmer. Can I have a couple of weeks' work over the summer?" And by the end of the first day, they'd offered him a full-time permanent job. And a year later, his classmates came into the office to have a look round.
Oh, wonderful.
He never looked back. Oprah Winfrey left university after 18 months when she was offered a job by RCA. So it's never too early to start looking.
Yeah. There's one movie also, The Intern, on Amazon Prime, which is like a 52-year-old. He wants to go into a job and he does all the things at work. It's such a good movie.
I'll definitely have a check on it. Manpreet.
I think that was a pretty good movie. Okay, Sai, did that cover your question well? Excellent.
It did
okay.
cover.
Do lower your hand, and my best guess is that Sean is next. Is that accurate, group? Okay, good. Excellent. Sean, eager to hear from you.
Yeah. How are you, Adrian? You okay?
Very good, Sean. Thank you. Very good indeed.
Fabulous. Thank you for this afternoon. So
I'm really enjoying it. It's a great group, a great bunch of people. Very enjoyable.
Good. Fantastic. We're happy that you're here. Okay. My question for you is, what would you call a perfect CV?
One that gets you a job.
Yeah, well, let me extend that. What kind of thing would you go for? Would it be more of the layout that will catch your eye first? Or would it be more experience or education? What would catch your eye first?
I think it depends for each person. It depends on their own personal circumstances.
Yeah.
We had a young man came to our job club. The bottom of page 2, it said MA Oxon Engineering. For those people that don't know, that is a master's degree from Oxford University in engineering. That is a fantastic qualification to have. And I said to him, Sean, you put that at the top of your thing, you put Sean, MA Oxon Engineering, right? Because someone will go, wow, I went there. That's exactly the chap we want. And you know what? We never saw him again. So Sean, pick what you think is the best thing. But please don't start a CV with 4 or 5 lines telling everyone how wonderful you are. I am a charismatic leader, team player, organized, perfect. No, you're just saying these things about yourself, and it's irrelevant. It counts for nothing.
Yeah.
So get into the meat of it. I've done this, I know this, I've achieved these things.
Awesome.
Excellent advice. I'd agree. And I think I'd just like to add, Sean, whatever is, and Adrian, please correct me if you disagree with this. Whatever you think is your best unique selling point, do something to make that stand out in your CV. That's what you think that will actually align you better with the job you hope to get, in my opinion.
There's a famous story about a young man who won a writing competition, and it was featured in the paper, and he took a photograph of it, and he just wrote across it, "This gun for hire," and put his mobile number on it, and just mailed it to 10 companies. He got a job.
Excellent. Okay. People in the hand raise group. If I'm not mistaken, I think Gus has been waiting the longest. Excellent. Let's go, Gus.
Actually, I don't have a question, but I would like to support what he's been saying because I experienced this recently. In January, I lost my job because of COVID, the job I used to have. But what I did was I went on LinkedIn and I started to use all my network, and I started to text them saying like, "Hey, look, I lost a job and I'm just looking for some advice. Perhaps you can point me in the right direction to follow some people to check what companies are hiring things that because there were people who worked with me before. So they guide me and they said like, look, there are these companies hiring profiles matching yours, right? So what I did, my advice is like, depending on the job that you're applying for or the kind of industry, you need to adapt your CV to that sort of industry. You need to sell out something that is relevant for them. As he said, it's not like, I'm a data scientist, I have experience on this and that and that and that. No, it's not just that. It's what they're looking for. And here in England, it's more like most of the jobs, but they are very professional companies. They share a person specification, which is more or less like all the competencies that you need to match. So that's why a covering letter is really important to sell out those points that they are not on your CV. And as he said, it's all about your achievements. It's not like, oh, I'm the Superman who's gonna do the things for you. It's actually match what they're looking for. And I experienced that just recently. Within 3 weeks, I managed to get a job, and I applied directly to a company. Directly, I got it, and it was amazing. About the perfect CV, I don't think there is a perfect CV. Again, I want to remark this point that your perfect CV is like the one that it match their needs. The one that it stand out saying like, yeah, I'm the guy that you're looking for, because you're looking for someone who is gonna be covering all these necessities for us. Not like saying, yes, I am here.
You make a very good point, Gus. And the interesting thing is we had somebody in our job club, and his CV was truly shocking. It was truly awful. And I was about to say, okay, where do I start with this? But he said, actually, I've got a job. And I couldn't believe it. What with that CV? He got a job with BT, the biggest telecoms carrier in Britain.
Yeah.
1,000 people had applied. And this chap has a 25-year sales career, and they've hired him to be a product marketing manager. And I'm like, how could this be? He's broken every rule in the book, and he's got a job against 1,000 people. Because there were 3 words on the CV which were in there, and somebody read it, which said Internet of Things. And they went, that's the guy. We want someone who knows about the Internet of Things. Get him in.
Yeah.
So you're right. The second thing is a covering letter. Most covering letters just say, here's my CV. Okay? The covering letter should say, I'm interested in your job because, and I can do this, this, and this for you sincerely. And when you've had the interview, by the close of play that day or first thing next morning, you write back to them and say to them, dear Mr. Reyes, it was a pleasure to meet you yesterday. Thank you for your time. I am very keen and interested in the role with your company. I think I could do a much better job than anybody else for this, this, and this reason. I look forward to hearing from you. Best wishes, Sean Ryan. That's what, and they go, gosh, somebody's followed up. They've got back to us, and they've reinforced this person, this young lady, Jaya, this young man goes, they want to work for us. Great.
Sure.
They're not just
Excellent.
applying for, they just want a job. They want to work for us. Great.
Excellent. Excellent. And I think this is coming out. I don't think Sean, because I know him pretty well now, I don't think he meant the perfect one. I think what we're all converging on is the one that highlights your uniqueness the best and how you can uniquely fulfill the needs of that company. That's what I think he meant by perfect. And okay, now in the lineup, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's Yogita next, but y'all be honest with each other. Is that right? Oh, is there contention?
Ashish. It's Ashish.
Ashish? Okay, go for it, Ashish.
Hi. So let's say I want to apply for a job, and in this given situation, in this given tech world, there are many organizations where there are positions in Amazon or Google itself, multiple positions which might suit my profile. But how do I find what's beneath that profile? Let's say I get into that organization, I got a job, but how do I know what exactly is the work there? The job description is not completely descriptive at all the times. Sometimes they keep it abstract. Sometimes we can just ask a couple of things in the interview because we don't want to mess up the interview as well. So how do we make sure that we land up in the exact page where we want to after getting the job?
Okay, so if I'm right in thinking, what you're saying is that the job description doesn't give you, Ashish, enough information about the role that you're applying for. And how can you make sure that actually the job you have to do is what you're expecting? And all you can do is ask questions. Now, normally interviews are a three process. The first interview, you ask strategic questions. The second interview, you ask sort of less strategic, sort of normal sort of questions. And the third time, you ask very specific questions. But your job is to get your inside them so that they want you, so that you can ask them more questions. And thank you for the job offer. It's fantastic. And yes, I'm of a mind to accept it. But before just putting pen to paper, please explain to me, Vivek, exactly what this role involve. You haven't covered with me, what our working hours are, what the holidays are, or you've talked about doing this, but do you mean that, or do you mean this? And if someone says, Ashish, look, you've got the offer, take it or leave it, then leave it. But your job is to get down their throat such that you can keep asking them until you're satisfied you've got all the answers you want. And if they brush you off, then go somewhere else.
So ideally, the last interview, or when you get the offer, that is the right time to ask as much questions as possible.
Well, there's nothing more tedious in a first interview than someone keep asking questions. No. The first interview is my gig. I want to know about you, whether I want to see you again. So please give me the time and the space. So respect that, but you're playing for the next shot. So when you come back for the next interview, can we explore this in a little bit more depth, if you don't mind today, please? That's what you're trying to do. Just gradually draw them out. And if you have, I've heard of some American companies, we've had 10 interviews. Just go with it. I mean, what else can you do? There was a fabulous one, a chap I knew years ago who was one of the very first employees of Cisco in the UK. And he said, they know more about me than my mother. What else do I have to tell them? That's just how it is sometimes.
Thank you.
I think you Gita right now.
Very good.
Hi, thank you for an awesome session. I wanted to ask, how do you handle career gaps? How do you write about your career gaps in your CV?
Yeah, good one. First thing is, people don't read CVs, they skim them. Okay?
Yeah.
Right? First of all, you take months off.
No,
So-
I have taken years off. I have a 7-year gap.
A 7-year gap.
Yeah.
A 7-year gap. The young man, by the way, who left school at 16 to work, he had a 3-year gap. I think the thing is, you have to be honest about what you've done in those 7 years. And there's nothing wrong with people having a gap on their CV if they can explain what they've been doing. I had a fantastic young lady who I placed in jobs 3 times, and she ran a bar in Portugal. She had an art business. She had all sorts of different things. She worked for a big high-tech telecom company, and then go run a bar in Portugal. But she could explain what she'd done. She'd used business skills. She'd built it up. She'd sold it. No problem.
Actually, I was
if you've had 7 years watching Netflix, Yogiti, you might struggle.
Okay. I have been and doing volunteering jobs in schools and all. So should I be mentioning that on the CV?
You're trying to mention anything which presents you in a good and positive light and adds towards the feeling that this is a person, okay, they haven't been working here in Cisco carrying a sales target for the last 7 years, but what they've done is very valuable work and experience and expertise, which they can now bring to the job with those soft skills and use those to make a difference.
Okay. Thank you.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, most of it.
Look, it's about making the best of what you've done. This young man, as I say, he was 52, he hadn't worked for 3 years. The first year, he said, I've worked non-stop for 37 years. Got no children. My wife works. I just want a holiday. I took a year off. And he took a year off. And I said, that's fine. Just say you've been doing DIY, you had a project around the house needed to be done. Then he took a job with the post office for a year. It was a contract. So after 2 months, he was stuck with it. And then COVID hit. And I said, just present these things honestly and straightforwardly and tell them the good things you get out of it. And if they don't, if they start saying, well, for the last year, what do you mean COVID? I mean, what? If they're being unreasonable, do you want to work for them?
Right. So do I need to mention it, or I can just mention the years and all, and or I should highlight my career gap, or I should just try to move on with it?
Well, I think if it's 7 years, that's a big chunk. You're a young lady. 7 years is a big chunk. So I would say you have to cover it and positively say what you did. But just a little tip for you. We've all had, and I'm no exception, a job that didn't work out. You were there perhaps 3 or 6 months. And, oh, God, do not put it in, Cisco, IBM, and then, ABC typewriters, 6 months, didn't work out, fired. What you write is, on the IBM job, you put at the bottom one line, prior to joining Cisco, I worked for ABC typewriters, or I worked in an allied field. And I guarantee no one will ever read it. No one will ever come back to you and say, tell us about ABC typewriters. Won't happen. Little tip.
So the best thing is, like, currently I'm pursuing a course. So I mentioned that. I'll mention about my post-graduation rather than highlighting my gap. I had a 10 years experience before the job, before the break.
Look, people have babies, people have childcare, If a company doesn't accept and understand that, do you want to work for them? How reasonable will they be with you when you're working for them? They start thinking, oh my God, you've been off for 7 years having children. How unreasonable. It's just not the real world, Yogita. And you have to have your own integrity. You have to have your own bottom line. Here is my bottom line, and I'm not going to be, a slave to somebody else who has to do what they want at the drop of a hat. They must respect me and how I do my job.
I just want to back up what Adrian's saying right now. We have to remember, and you really want to be careful to remember this when you go in an interview. Make it clear that you are there to interview them also. Don't let them interview you the whole time. That would be a mistake. All right.
Yes, Tom, and they'll respect you more when you do it as well.
Yes. It's some unwritten rule. If you let them walk on you, they won't respect you. Okay, if I'm not mistaken, Sai would be next in line, but help me out if that's wrong.
I think only Santi forgot to slow down his hand. That's all.
Oh, okay, very good. And then it would be, and we were just hearing from you, Yogita, correct? Excellent. Yes. Okay, Ngozi. I think I'm even saying it correctly for the first time.
Hi. Okay, I thought Yogi was going to say something. Adrian, you're talking about over 50. So when it comes down to interviews, I find it quite frustrating when the remuneration and salary is not mentioned up front, and then there's this whole interview process that is going on and on and on. And I find that sometimes people ask you to do all sorts of things, project plans and, things that would actually should be paid for. And, sometimes I just go, I need to know how much, because some jobs might sound okay on paper, but the salary is just not worth you going through with the interview. And I think it's quite a letdown if you put in a lot of effort and go for interview first time, second time. And when you take out time to go for interviews, that is time you are not working. And I've had times when I've had to travel. In fact, there was an interview I went for. I made them pay me for the day because I told them that I traveled to Birmingham. I live in London for the interview, and it took the whole day to get this whole thing done. I said, well, you have to pay for some of the costs. So, because you're talking about people who have got some good experience, at what point do you expect some of those information to come forth? I expect them to be upfront with it, but I found that in some jobs, just like I think Ashish or someone has mentioned, they're not telling you a lot about the job. They're not telling you about the salary. They're not telling you exactly what it is. It's sort of some hide and seek thing, and it's a bit, frustrating sometimes.
Well, it's extremely frustrating, Ngozi, and I absolutely feel for your position. And this is normally government departments who have this cloak and dagger method of recruitment. And they have a very strict and formal process and do this and jump this hoop and jump this hoop and give this presentation. And I really, really struggle to suggest anything that can break that cycle, which is sort of, we ask the questions, you give the answers. But the earlier in the interview you can ask and say, look, this is a very interesting role. But I have to tell you at this stage, I am at an advanced stage with a couple of other companies, and those things look quite interesting. I just have to ensure we're in the right ballpark regarding money. Could you just tell me what this role's paying, please? And if they won't tell you, once again, why the cloak and dagger? If they won't tell you, it probably means they're not paying very much. I used to do some recruitment for Microsoft, And I had to sign, the only company, I had to sign a non-disclosure agreement because the pay at Microsoft was so bad that they knew if word got out, people would start pinching their staff. But of course, the premise was, you'll do so well here with the stock options, you'll never want to leave. But for all that, they were very sensitive about it. But just going back, the very first person sent out for interview, it came down from Yorkshire to London, and the interview didn't go well. And he phoned me up to say, look, he said, they haven't, I've sent them my expenses and they haven't paid them. Could you on my behalf phone them up and please get me my check? So I phoned the company up and I said, I'm just phoning up on behalf of Sean Ryan about his expenses. He says you haven't paid them. I said, well, you should understand that Mr. Ryan submitted expenses which were a return rail fare from Bradford to London, which is fine, but he then added 4 hours at £20 an hour for wasting my time. It was probably why they hadn't paid.
That was great. Just below, someone was asking Adrian in the chat, I have experience in hospitality, but it was not an analytics role. And I just wrote a piece for him. I'd like you to evaluate it. And it could be improved, by the way. My experience in hospitality improved the needed soft skills necessary to do well in analytics roles. In other words, I am good at finding out people's needs. I think you can take every bit of life experience you've had and show the value you gained during that period and how it would apply to the career direction you're aiming now. And like Adrian's pointed out, we don't all start out in our, ideal career at the beginning. And as you make course corrections, there's always some value. Like I have a lot of sales background, guys. I leverage that heavily when I'm looking for new roles. Okay, I think Magdi was now. Oh, Adrian, please correct or refine what I just said too, if necessary.
You can't underestimate trying to change careers. It's a very, very tough thing to do and should not be entered lightly. And certainly in the present COVID climate, you're making the task, I wouldn't say impossible, but very close to impossible, unless you know somebody very well or give you a chance, or you're doing it at your expense. If you look at my LinkedIn profile, you'll see I've changed careers. Well, okay, how's he done it? On every occasion, I paid for it myself. Nobody else had to pay for me to change careers.
And in fact, I want to hasten to say our blog posts for our family, being a data scientist, remember, if you are making a career change to data science, that doesn't mean you can't be a data science in whatever role you get. You may not get a data science role title right away, but if you start using data science and you build up your data science experience in your current roles, then you're proving I'm using data science, I'm applying data science. And so that's why we wrote that article the way we did. And remember Andrew Jones, he started out in a non-technical field and he kept just being a data scientist. Okay, Magdi, I think you're next.
Sorry, Tom, can I just say something before Magdi, just to support what Adrian said? I've done exactly that a number of times. I've changed careers, and just like he said, sometimes you have to find a way, to sell your skills. Sometimes it's taking on volunteering roles in a field where you want to go to, so you can get a foot in the door and prove your worth. Yeah, that's all I wanted.
Yes, I mean, I took on a role in my retirement as chairman of stroke care for our local county. And I think having done that for a year or a couple of years, only part-time, didn't take up very much time at all, I could then, had I wanted to, apply for jobs in London with the Stroke Association and a very, very good chance of getting them. And I have no background in medical science at all. So what the advice that Tom gives is correct. Show that you're moving towards that.
Real quick, and Magdi, forgive me, there was a person that couldn't raise their hand. for some reason, they're not seeing the reactions. So we'll go to Chenmei next and then to Magdi.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. Adrian, thanks for the session. It was quite informative. So my question is, currently I'm working professional and planning for a master's. So after completing my master's, what companies will think me as a fresher or experienced person? And if it is a fresher, how can I highlight my these 2 years of work experience in the relevant field?
Okay, so Jim, I see what you're saying is, before you did the masters, you had 2 years work experience. You worked for a company before that.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so I would start the CV off with the 2 years of work experience and show that, and then underneath show the master's degree you've got, or perhaps put a line above and then expand it below. But highlight the work experience. So don't think of you, oh gosh, this is another fresher looking for his first job. Yes, so put the job first, then put the other stuff underneath.
Okay, yeah, actually I have heard from my seniors and my colleagues they consider such a person as a fresher only. That's why I asked, is there any such a thing, or we can highlight this thing?
I think it's a bit harsh to see you as a fresher when you've got 2 years of good solid work experience behind you. That's a bit tough. That's why you should highlight it and make it clear.
Okay.
I've supplemented my bachelor's degree, following 2 years work experience. I've upgraded that to a master's degree to make me eligible for more senior and more interesting positions.
Okay.
Excellent. Thank
Thanks.
you, Adrian. And thank you, Chinmay, for reminding me. Yeah, without the hand raise function, it gets a little hard to remember. Magdi, we're eager to hear from you, dear.
Thank you. Thank you, first of all, for the insightful presentation. And I would like to just ask about your opinion and experience as well regarding also an age-related question. And it's namely that, what is your experience as a recruiter? Are there unconscious bias regarding generation competition, like young generation and as of mid-age plus 50, I mean mid-age like 45, 50 and up? Is it, as a recruiter, do you experience something like that from companies when you were talking about the positions? Do they reveal to you as a recruiter that they have a preference, for example, according to the age? And for example, if you have a young candidate and you have a 40-something candidate, do you think the companies or majority of the companies would go for the freshers because of flexibility, because of being able to train them better, because they can form that person, or because of financial criteria, for example? I just would like to hear your opinion about the chances to get a job like going towards 50 or over 50, and is it something which is existing, like this competition between the candidates from different generations? What do you think?
I placed 300 people. Only one of those people was over 50. It doesn't mean people over 50 don't get jobs, but companies didn't want to pay a recruiter like me a big fat fee for somebody over 50. I tell people, please take everything on your CV that indicates your age, everything off it. If you've got an email which says, Valerie Connor 93 at gmail.com, oh, Valerie Connor will be 28 then. That's my point. So you're immediately giving up. And if you start off with, I have 30 years experience, oh, well, you've got to be well over 50 then. So, and take all the education, take the dates off the education. Take off the dates that will show things that how old you are, and just content the last 10 years. And then you just put last 10 years, and then you put previous career. Now, you might have had 20 fantastic years doing amazing things. Just put previous career. Prior to joining Microsoft, I worked in the hospitality industry or whatever it is. Just a line, just a few words. I interviewed a managing director of a really big top company early on. And the first thing on his CV underneath his name was 1972 FW Woolworths. Now, Woolworths, they've gone now, but even back then, it wasn't a good name to put on your CV. And I was shocked. And he said, well, what could I do? I said, first of all, that's the last thing on the CV. And you put previous career retail. And if someone asks you, you tell them. But if somebody came in and went, I bet he hasn't told you he used to work for Woolworths, because he lied on his CV, I bet. No, you haven't. There it is. Previous career retail. I didn't lie, it's there. You never asked me about it. So yes, and the other thing is, if you're 45, they're looking at you or a 22-year-old, ask them the question, they're going to pay the money a 22-year-old expects to get. Is that enough for me? Is the job big enough for me? Is it interesting enough for me? But in short, there's bias at every stage of the recruitment process, and you can't change, you can't do anything about it. All you can do is, when you go for interview, try and fit in with the tribe. Try and do things, act things, or wear things that they will recognise. Oh yes, Magda, she's one of us. She's like that young lady upstairs in accounting. Yeah, she'll fit in here. That's what you're trying to achieve. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that definitely. Although, yeah, I was just thinking the technical part of the CV that it would mean, because yeah, if I say that, okay, I have a master and I have a bachelor, obviously I just cannot hide the year. I mean, the only thing I can do, I can put the first 10 years is for working experience. I mean, the last 10 years. And then at the very end of the CV, somehow mention my education, because, yeah.
Sorry, Magdi, let me just interject. You don't have to put your BXc in your CV. Well, at least in Britain, you don't have to. You don't have to, put in, unless it's a school, you want to lecture or something. For regular jobs, you don't have to say what BSc you've got and when. Do you, Adrian?
Well, if you look on my LinkedIn profile, you'll see that I have a bachelor's degree and a master's degree, and neither of them has a date.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I've hidden my age, gone out of my way to hide my age.
Excellent points. In fact, I would struggle like Magdi. I have a lot of dates on my resume, and I go back pretty far. And this is really causing me to rethink some things. It's very helpful, but I don't think it's dishonest to just say I have this degree. You don't need to know when I got it. It's fine.
I once had a candidate who told me he didn't have any education on his CV because he was overqualified. And he was overqualified and he put people off. And I said, really? Like what? He said, well, I have an MBA from Bristol. I said, really? Is that Bristol University or Bristol Polytechnic? Said, are you calling me a liar? And I said, not yet, no. And he left the office, and I picked the phone to Bristol University. I said, can you tell me, did you have Vivek Joshi on your MBA course last year? He said, last year? Only starts in September. And next day he phoned up and he said, I think I probably said a bit too much yesterday. I said, yes, I phoned Bristol University. I never heard from him again. So
interesting. Okay, Magdi, I think everybody was loving your question. Do you feel like Adrian covered it okay?
Yeah, I think so. It is just, I just feel pity. I mean, I think a lot of companies just missing out on people who can bring a lot of skills and different perspective to a company. I mean, you cannot compare someone with 20 years of experience with someone who just get out of the university. I mean, I think there are so many things to bring on board, and they just do not care about it, either because of some, I mean, they want to have an easygoing workforce. Somehow that is my feeling, because they can be formed. You can direct easier a young person than someone who is more experienced and has some ideas, for example, to bring. And on the other side, yeah, after a certain age, you see things differently and approach problems differently. And it is not about only hard skills. So I'm really focused on soft skills as well. And it is totally different when you get out from university, your portfolio of soft skills than 20 years later, obviously, because of your experience.
Sorry, Tom.
Hang on, Ngozi. Let me add to this. Let me add to this just because of my experience. Magdi, Adrian kind of had this mentality earlier in the talk, and it was this. Do you want to work for a company like that?
No.
And here's the point. Yes, I'm getting to an age where I get filtered from my age, not because they don't have good experience, because they're trying to be on the cheap. I've been laid off because, and when I looked at the trend, oh, they're trying to get rid of the bigger salaries. This is obvious now. And because I just kept having a be do have mentality, it got me the right place. Now, it was a little painful at times, but it was the best change to my career possible, to get out of that place and get into a place that valued my years of experience.
Yeah.
And what ends the careers early, Magdi, is when you work for a younger boss. When you're 25 and your boss is 50 and does something stupid, you think he must know what he's doing. You know, when you're 45 and your boss is 30, 35 and does something, you know, stupid, they know that you know they've done something stupid. And after that, life can be very difficult. And I had a young man, well, he wasn't young anymore when I placed him, and he could go through the whole process in 6 weeks of the boss actually hating him because he knew that this guy was just laughing at him behind his back. So, you know, if you do work for someone much younger, you know, I think about Facebook. You know, is Mark Zuckerberg, is he 30 yet? You know, do you want to work for somebody where there's effectively a generation gap? Do they want your expertise? Do they want your knowledge? Do they want your experience? Genuinely. And if they don't, working there, there's only one thing not worse than not having a job. It's having a job where you don't want to go to work anymore.
Amen. Amen. And Ngozi, forgive me, really want to hear your point.
No, I just sent you a message and said your point was even better. Yeah, but what I was going to say to Magdi is that there is also, because I've also been on the other side of recruiting, where you have this issue where the other team members are a lot younger and you're concerned about how an older person will fit in with the tribe. And I've been in situations where I'm the youngest, well, over my career, and also now coming to a place where I'm among the older people in the team. But it's really about how, you know, the person hiring doesn't know how you're going to, because there are some people who are older and the whole team has to sort of bend over to accommodate their own set ways. So, and the manager, whoever is hiring, is trying to trade that path where they don't want to upset the dynamics of the team by bringing someone who is going to be the granddad, you know, telling everybody off, and you know, you have to be very mindful of how you tell them what to do or how you approach them. So yeah, and if an organization, I mean, there are things on my CV, of course, obviously, that would allude to how old I am, and if they're not fine with that, and that's fine. And I know I've been to an interview once. Tom, I think I can give you a run for your grace. And I got a feedback that the manager, because at the point my hair was not, you know, the gray was out, and the manager wasn't comfortable with working with me because she assumed I grade as a teenager. She assumed I was very, very old. And I didn't take on the offer even when they gave me the job, because I felt it's, you know, I don't have the energy to work in that environment. I had to protect my energy. So it goes both ways. And sometimes it's best to just walk away from situations that they don't value your experience and your age, or they can't cope with it. Either way, yeah.
I'm really glad you added that. I've gone on interviews where I felt like I was older than everyone. Even the CEO of the company was probably young enough to be my son, and it was strangely uncomfortable. But anyway, anything to add to that, Adrian?
I sat with a client once, and this was the company who took the only person I ever placed over 50. And I put this chap in there as a product marketing manager. Within 6 weeks, he'd made himself a marketing director. And I felt good. I felt, well, this is a really good placement. The guy was really pleased with me. And I sort of knew him sort of semi-personally. We'd been involved in some issues in the town together. And at one point he said, all recruiters, in my opinion, are 23-year-old white-socked idiots. And I said, tell me, do you see me like that? Yes, he said, you're a recruiter. And I said, thank you, goodbye. And I never, ever went to that office or spoke to him ever again.
Wise move. I completely applaud that. Jonathan, you've been patiently waiting. Thank you.
No, that's all right. I managed to get back after seeing to the children as well, so that's good. So caught in there that we was talking about age bias and other criteria. Have you ever seen, or have you? We know that there's a lot of diversity culture going on in companies as well. You see that they hire, they want to make sure they're diverse. They have X amount of women in the workforce, men in the workforce, different cultures in the workforce. What's your experience on that? And if you've experienced, it's quite hidden that every company has a different, would say, a ratio that they should have or would like to be seen publicly to be having. Have you ever experienced any of that apart from age bias to diversity bias? Yeah,
back in the late 90s, the HR people in Cisco came to me and said, what plans, what strategies, and what are you doing about recruiting more women for our company? And I can't speak for Cisco today, but back 20 years ago, Cisco was a very, very technical company. And if I had any technical people, I'd put them up there in a heartbeat. I tell you, the lady with the wine bar in Portugal and the art, she had a first-class honours degree in mechanical engineering, and I was after placing her in a heartbeat. But I said to them, I can't go out specifically looking for women for you or whatever. I see everybody I can who's talented, and if they're good enough for your company, I put them forward. So I felt quite uncomfortable with sort of being pushed in that position in terms of trying to find people and pushing them into what I thought was a very alpha male and was a very technical company where I wouldn't have been happy with my daughter going to work there. On the other hand, I saw recently a big company in Reading that employed one of our guys who was 57, and they said they hired me because I met their quota for people over 50. So the diversity agenda, it's good. It's good to encourage more people from diverse backgrounds to come in. As I say, the trick then is to make them realize you're part of their tribe, but also once you get there, to show diversity up here in your brain, that you actually have a different background experience. And I'm bringing this to the party rather than just singing off the company hymn sheet. That's what disappoints me most, where you get people from a diverse background who come in and they're more pro the company and more pro the company line than anybody else that's there. So that's all I would say is it's to be welcomed. It's a good thing to do, and long may it continue.
I think I've been pleasantly blown away, as we say in the US. Adrian, this far exceeded my hopes and expectations. I knew it would be good following our planning talk with you, but this was truly great. You're welcome to come rejoin us anytime. We might even invite you to help us in future sessions when we're talking around interviewing resumes. We're writing a blog post together as a team on interviews right now, collecting the wisdom we've heard from people. We might ask you to review that before we post it. And excellent. Thank you. Oh, no, you are very worthy. And then your strikingly good-looking son. Thank you for encouraging us to have your dad here. And
it's his mother. She's a very attractive woman.
I believe you. But guys, let's do what we do. I know I don't normally write posts in our sessions because I want you guys to do it, and I support those, but I'm going to write a killer post on this session, and I'm going to make sure I link the video of the session in that LinkedIn post. And I might even, Adrian, once I finish reading your book, I'll do a book review. It'll involve Ta, and you'll enjoy Ta. He's quite the character, and we'll go from there. Valerie, we haven't heard from you in a while, and I would just like you to give us some closing thoughts of wisdom from your great mind.
Oh, well, actually, I have a question, if that's okay. Okay, so Adrian, in the US, we use the STAR format for answering interview questions. And I was wondering if that's the same format that's used in the UK. And, what do you think is the best method or format for answering interview questions?
The STAR, yes, I have come across that. Just remind me what it is, Valerie.
I think it's that situation, task, action, result. Thank you, Richard.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing to have in mind. The difficulty of answering interview questions is you can talk for too long, you can get distracted, you can go off in a tangent. If you have the STAR thing in the back of your mind, that will keep you on track. And as I said right at the start, the most common interview question is, "Tell me about yourself."
Yes.
And I've had people speak for 20 minutes. At the end of it, they've gone, "Very interesting. Nice to meet you. Goodbye." So, watch the eye contact. When that person has lost eye contact, they've lost interest, just stop speaking, just shut up there and then they'll come back to you. But you've lost them for whatever reason. So the STAR thing, good idea, Valerie. Good tip. Thank you.
Well, do you have like a structure in a sense for answering that question? Tell me about yourself, because I think that's like a number one question that gets thrown at people, and that is just, it can really break your interview. In the book. Okay.
By the book, Valerie.
And
Great.
I would suggest too, these would be those times where what Giovanna's been teaching us about elevator pitches would come into play. And then, you can give your elevator pitch, but now if they're looking enthralled, you can elaborate on your elevator pitch. Just my thoughts. Thank you, Adrian.
No, I think it's chapter 7. Tell me about yourself.
Great. Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank
Okay.
you for giving me a chance to plug my book, Valerie.
and no pressure, but I'm asking, and I'll say this in the family chat. I'm asking more than the normal number of people to comment on this session. And Gaith and I will make sure you know how to get the exact link for this session once he adds it to YouTube. And that will be great, because Adrian, this was truly valuable. I think many people could benefit from it. And frankly, we wouldn't mind seeing you sell more books. Yeah, of course. Okay. One final invite for any closing comments, and you can all come off mute and thank Adrian.
I think
too,
Richard wants to add something.
Yeah, Richard, you did have your hand up, but you put it back down.
I was going to ask something, and I thought you'd say it was silly because I could just ask him anytime. So
no, ask for the benefit of everyone else.
Well, I kind of thought that. Well, first of all, thank you so much. I ran out of battery, so I had to turn the camera off for a bit to start charging it. But Oh, just lovely to be here, and thanks for the warm reception from my dad's. You know, it's a bit surreal sort of when family get involved, but you've made it so nice for him and so pleasant. Thank you so much for that. And I love being here with you guys. You are beautiful human beings. But my question actually was one I've just never thought to ask, and I've thought about many times, never asked anybody, is, you know, on LinkedIn you have the about section, you have that just space, don't you, to write whatever you want. You've got your job and your role underneath, but here you just got kind of what's my world. And I see that some people write it like their CV. I do this, I've done that. And I always wondered if, you know, when you get the job, you should write more about what you're doing, because then it's your customers who are going to be reading that. And I just wondered if you thought that, or anybody else, about, you know, what you want to express in there, and whether it's still for you, and whether you should be thinking about your next role, or whether you should orientate that at the projects, clients, prospects, whatever, that now become more important to you.
I think it's a very, very good observation, and certainly updating your LinkedIn profile is vital to keep it current. And you're right. So once again, who's your audience now? Who'll be looking at it now? And what they want? Oh, I could tell them about this. I'm doing these things now. Oh, that's interesting. And I hadn't thought about that before, but that's a very good angle.
I just hired somebody as digital marketing manager, and her profile still says, I'm a digital marketing manager with 3 years experience here and 4 years experience. I'm like, well, hold up, you know, you're with us now. Write some stuff about AI, you know, tell people why you want to be in this industry so much so you can build your connections. But I don't want to tell her what to do. Right? You know. Anyway, I'll keep thinking about it.
Well, I think if you say it nicely enough, no one should take offense at being a suggestion.
Yeah,
I'm glad you added that question, Richard, because everyone needed to benefit from it. And I think that's something as a family, guys, we can all help each other with constantly. Continual improvement on our LinkedIn profiles. That would be very good. And I think we can use what we've been learning from each other in all the sessions to make those profiles better than ever. So that
if I could just make, first of all, what a lovely bunch of people. What really nice, thoughtful, kind, helpful people. You've made me feel so welcome. You must understand that I did this for Richard. You know, I wouldn't have volunteered to do this myself. So, you know, I was a bit bothered about doing it, but you've made me feel so welcome. It's just been lovely. But the other point I wanted to make was the whole point about my book is you taking control of the job hunt. It's not about being over 50, under 50. It's about taking control and looking after your mental health and feeling that you're driving it, you're doing it, and you know what's happening next. And on Tuesday, I'm phoning Sean. And on Thursday, I'm phoning Magdi. And on Friday, I'm phoning Gus. And on Monday, I'm phoning Gaith. And it's all laid out. You're in charge. You're in control of it. You're not waiting for this ping up on your laptop, which says you're called for interview, or, oh, you know, and then everything hangs on that. Oh, I must get this job. It's the one that's come through. No. When you're running the thing yourself, you have other things you're looking at, other things you're doing, other things you're talking. You can talk about them, even if they're not advanced. You can talk about them to give you power in the process, to get you a better salary, to get you a better position, to get you the job pulled down. So that's why I recommend my process is about taking control and thinking outside the box, doing things differently, making yourself stand out and look different.
And Adrian, I can completely appreciate the way you feel toward our group. I have been blessed by God to be, I think I need to start calling myself the grandfather, because really Gaith and Magdi and Kim, you know, they're like fathers in this group, or, you know, at least big brothers. And then we have our children but we are, I can't argue anymore. We're a beautiful family, a beautiful group, and we love getting together. And the only reason people don't stay on the whole time is because they have other things to do. In fact, Adrian, it's quite comical. We realized normally we stop as soon after the hour as we can. And then we have what we call an after party. And that's so that we don't go too long and people feel like they're missing something. But with you today, I think Gaith and I were both like, we're not stopping this. People can watch the recording if they felt like they missed something. And we wanted to give you, we were getting such huge benefit from all that you're saying, and we wanted to keep going. So hopefully those that had to drop off for various reasons will listen to the recording to get the rest of the wisdom. But I have a fatherly point I want to close with. There's an opportunity for each of you to work one-on-one with Adrian. In fact, it would be even better than working one-on-one with him. Imagine that all of his lifelong best thinking on these points was condensed into a set of concise notes. That's what his book is. So please do buy his book and study it carefully. That will have better results than even our talk here today. I think you all realize that. When you read what an author has taken the time to carefully craft and put into a book, that's far better. This was like an appetizer, and it's left us wanting for more, I hope. So do buy the book. And I don't think it's the case with anyone here, but if there's some reason, oh, Gaith, can you stop the recording? Let me know when you have. Just give me a thumbs up when you've stopped the recording.